You know that feeling, right? First thing in the morning, the alarm goes off, and maybe even before your feet hit the floor. What do? You reach for the phone, that little glowing rectangle. A quick scroll, a tap, maybe a double tap, and boom, you're plugged in. It feels like more than just a habit now, doesn't it? It's almost the default setting for starting the day for so many people. A really fundamental shift. And the speed of this shift, it's kind of staggering. I mean, just what, 2 decades? Human communication has gone through this. Well, some people call it the most dramatic transformation since the invention of the printing press. Seriously, think about it. We went from, letters, landlines, to living huge parts of our lives through screens, sharing really intimate stuff, documenting tiny details, even building whole relationships with people we've never physically met. It's huge. It's this massive cultural evolution happening right under our noses. So today in the deep dive, we're digging into that. Not just the apps themselves, but why we use them like this. We're doing some, let's call it social detective work.
Trying to uncover these hidden patterns, the cultural norms we might just be taking for granted now. And the big question for this deep dive is really, how did a whole generation basically become digital natives? And what does that actually mean for all of us navigating this constantly evolving human experience? Okay, so how do we get here? Let's rewind a bit. Before the endless scroll, there was a time when online meant sitting at a desktop, right? But then early 2000s, something started to bubble up.
Yeah, absolutely. It sort of crept up on us. The real pioneers were things like Friendster back in 2002. And then MySpace popped up in 2003, which really took off. Those were the first big ones, letting you build a profile, connect with a network. But the real game changer, arguably, was Facebook. Started by Mark Zuckerberg, just a Harvard student then. But the key thing to grasp here is these weren't just neat bits of technology. They were tapping into something deeper. It was a profound psychological shift.
The psychological shift.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I get that. It's like suddenly you could broadcast ourselves, become our own little radio station or TV channel. Our identity wasn't just who we were anymore, but also this carefully crafted version we presented online. That's a whole new kind of pressure, isn't it?
Exactly. For the first time really in history, you could instantly share your thoughts, your feelings, your vacation photos, whatever, with hundreds, maybe thousands of people.
And get that immediate feedback. Likes, comments, shares.
Right, that immediate validation, or the lack of it. That feedback loop, that was completely new and incredibly compelling, addictive even. It's like our inner sense of self suddenly had this constant external mirror reflecting back at it.
And then came the smartphones. That just poured gasoline on the fire, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That dramatically accelerated everything. Social media went from being something you checked, maybe once or twice a day at your computer, to being this constant companion, always there in your pocket, buzzing, demanding attention. It fundamentally changed its role in our lives, wove itself right into the fabric of our routines.
Yeah, you can sort of trace the evolution through the platforms themselves. Like Instagram pops up in 2010, and suddenly it's all about the visual, crafting that perfect picture, the filters. It created this whole new visual language almost.
It really did. Very focused on visual storytelling, often aspirational.
Then you had Twitter, forcing brevity, right? 280 characters. It became this real-time pulse of news, opinions, like a giant, sometimes messy, global town square.
Instant commentary. And then Snapchat brought in disappearing content.
Which was fascinating. Because you'd think permanence is key online, but making things temporary actually made it feel, I don't know, more authentic, spontaneous, less pressure, maybe.
Precisely. Less curated, perhaps.
Yeah.
But then came TikTok. Launched internationally in 2018, and that just shifted the landscape again. Its whole model, the algorithm, the short-form video, it created this entirely new type of entertainment, a new way to express yourself.
It feels different, doesn't it?
Oh,
Less
yeah.
about your direct network, more about what the algorithm thinks you'll like.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating is how fast these platforms learned from us, adapted to our behaviors, and then in turn started reshaping those behaviors. TikTok especially just blew the doors open on content creation. Suddenly, anyone with a phone could potentially go viral overnight, become a creator, an influencer. It democratized it in a way.
Okay, so you have this constant presence, these evolving platforms. What does this do to a generation growing up with it? The digital natives. How has this shaped the way they actually think, communicate, how they experience, well, social reality itself?
It's had a profound psychological impact, no question. Their whole perspective on things like privacy, relationships, self-expression. It's just fundamentally different from older
They're
generation.
different how? Like, what are some concrete examples?
Well, for instance, there's often a greater comfort level with sharing personal information online. Maintaining friendships primarily through screens feels quite natural to many, and finding community, real community, in online spaces built around shared interests rather than just who lives nearby. That's huge.
So geography matters less.
In many ways, yes. And they've developed these really sophisticated new forms of literacy. They understand algorithms intuitively sometimes. They know how to read between the lines of a perfectly curated Instagram post. They navigate these complex social dynamics across multiple platforms all at once. It's quite complex.
That raises a big question, though, doesn't it? What happens when your foundational experiences of connection are digital? Does it change the nature of those connections?
That's the crucial question anthropologists like me are grappling with. This idea of digital literacy is key.
Yeah, it's fascinating. But if they're so good at spotting curated posts, does that make them more cynical? Or is it just a necessary skill now for everyone? Because, let's be honest, this isn't a simple good or bad story, is it? There are amazing upsides here, real positives, but also some pretty significant challenges to our well-being. It's definitely nuanced.
Oh, absolutely. Very nuanced. Researchers like Dr. Turkle at MIT have written extensively about this duality. On the plus side, you have unprecedented opportunities. Connection across distances, finding your voice, accessing information.
Yep.
It's incredible. Think about marginalized communities finding support networks online that just didn't exist before, or social movements organizing globally with incredible speed.
Yeah, the Arab Spring is often cited there, right?
And artists, creators, bypassing the old gatekeepers, reaching audiences directly. That's real empowerment.
Okay, so undeniable benefits. Connection, voice, democratized creativity. Powerful stuff. But you mentioned a duality. What's the other side of that coin? The darker reflection.
Well, that's where we see things like rising rates of anxiety, depression, especially among young people.
Mhm.
And a lot of research links this to social media use. There's this immense, constant pressure to present a perfect life online. Always happy, always successful, always looking great. It's exhausting.
The highlight reel effect.
Exactly. And then there's the addictive design. Those likes, comments, notifications. They provide intermittent reinforcement. It's like a slot machine for your attention.
You keep scrolling, hoping for that little hit of validation.
Precisely. You don't know when the next win will come, so you keep pulling the lever. It conditions behavior very effectively, even if it doesn't make you truly happy. And this feeds into that phenomenon of compare and despair. You see everyone else's curated perfection, and it's easy to feel like your own life doesn't measure up.
Oof. Yeah. Compare and despair. I think many of us can relate to that feeling, even subtly.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the tools offer connection, maybe liberation, but their design can also foster real distress.
It's almost paradoxical. Tools for connection making us feel inadequate or even more alone sometimes. Which brings us back to that why. To really get the social patterns, we need to look under the hood, right? Why are these platforms free? How does that shape what we see and ultimately how we feel?
That's the absolute core of it, the business model. Users are not the customer, you're the product.
Right. Our attention is what's being sold.
Exactly. Your attention, your data, your patterns of behavior, all meticulously tracked and packaged for advertisers. Researcher Tim Wu famously called this the attention economy. These platforms are engineered from the ground up to capture and hold your focus for as long as possible.
Because more eyeballs mean more ad revenue.
Precisely. Every second you spend scrolling, clicking, reacting, that's currency for them.
And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Those algorithms deciding what shows up in your feed, they're not optimizing for truth or your happiness, are they?
Not primarily, no. They're optimized for engagement, what keeps you scrolling, what makes you react.
And what makes us react, often strong emotions, right?
Bingo. Content that provokes strong feelings, anger, fear, outrage, even intense joy, tends to get more shares, more comments. It signals engagement to the algorithm. So that kind of content gets amplified. It gets pushed to the top of feeds.
And the downstream effects of that are, well, pretty significant for society.
Hugely significant. It contributes to increased polarization because inflammatory stuff travels fast. It helps spread misinformation because sensationalism often trumps accuracy for engagement. And it creates these echo chambers where you mostly see things you already agree with, reinforcing your biases and making it harder to understand different perspectives.
Okay, so we have the text, the psychology, the business model. But zooming out again, how has this changed our actual day-to-day interactions, our social rituals, our sense of community?
Well, among digital natives especially, we see new communication styles taking root. There's a real comfort with asynchronous communication.
Meaning like not talking in real time, texting back and forth over hours.
Exactly. Conversations happen in bursts, maybe across different apps, not necessarily face-to-face or even on a continuous call. And friendships are often maintained through sharing memes, reaction GIFs. It's a whole visual and coded language. Sometimes very little actual text is exchanged, but the connection is felt.
A language of memes.
It really is. And crucially, community is often defined less by where you live and more by shared interests or identities. Think of online gaming communities, fan groups, support networks for specific conditions. These niche tribes, as some call them, can offer incredibly deep belonging, sometimes more so than local ties, because they're built purely on that shared passion or experience.
That's powerful. Finding your people, even if they're scattered across the globe. But does that replace local community? Or just add another layer? That feels like a really important cultural question.
It's likely both, and it varies hugely. But we definitely see new social rituals emerging.
Like what? What are these new rituals?
Well, think about the Instagram story documenting your day moment by moment for public consumption. Or the TikTok dance challenge that sweeps across the platform, creating a shared cultural moment.
Or even a really detailed Twitter thread breaking down a complex issue. It's like a new form of public discourse.
Exactly. These are new ways of performing identity, building connection, and participating in culture. So the big picture question is, how are we building identity and community now? It's fundamentally shifted.
And then, of course, the pandemic hit. That must have just thrown everything into hyperdrive.
Oh, absolutely. The COVID-19 pandemic was a massive accelerator. Suddenly, it wasn't just digital natives. Everyone had to rely on digital platforms. Work, school, socializing, shopping, doctor's appointments. Everything moved online out of necessity. Video calls became the norm for connecting with family, colleagues, everyone.
Social media use went through the roof,
It
right?
skyrocketed. And that line between online life and offline life, which was already blurring, it basically got erased for a lot of people.
But thinking about access, this whole transformation, it hasn't landed evenly on everyone, has it? It sort of highlights existing inequalities.
That's a critical point. We have to talk about the digital divide. Access to reliable internet, devices, and importantly, the skills to use these tools effectively. It's not evenly distributed.
So things like age, income, where you live, your education level, they all play a huge role.
Definitely. And this creates new forms of inequality, new barriers to participation in this increasingly digital culture and economy. If your life requires digital access and you don't have it or can't navigate it well, you're excluded in new ways.
Which really raises questions about equity, doesn't it? How do we ensure everyone can participate and benefit, and not just deepen existing divides?
Exactly. It's a major societal challenge.
So looking ahead then, where does this wild ride take us next? What kind of future social patterns are starting to emerge? Because it doesn't feel like it's slowing down.
Not at all. We're seeing new technologies on the horizon that could shift things again. Virtual reality, augmented reality. They promise much more immersive online interactions, making it feel more real, maybe.
Trying to bridge that gap between digital and physical.
Right. And artificial intelligence is getting incredibly sophisticated.
Yeah.
Generating content, even participating in conversations. That's going to change things profoundly. And then there's the whole concept of the metaverse, this idea of persistent, interconnected virtual worlds where we might work, play, socialize, and even deeper intertwining of digital and physical existence.
Wow. Okay, so the pace isn't letting up. Which brings us back to the present, maybe, for us, for you listening. How do we navigate all this incredibly complex, constantly changing, mediated world? How do we hold on to authentic human connection amidst it all? It feels like the challenge.
It really is, and it demands new kinds of literacy, doesn't it? Digital literacy, not just how to use the tech, but understanding the impact, recognizing how algorithms shape what you see, spotting manipulation, learning to manage your own attention, which is now a precious commodity, and critically, figuring out how to nurture real relationships, whether they're online, offline, or somewhere in between.
It's about being intentional, maybe.
Very much so. And there's also this growing awareness, thankfully, about the need for guardrails, regulation, ethical guidelines, thinking seriously about data privacy, algorithmic bias, how platforms moderate content, the sheer concentrated power of these big tech companies. It's becoming a mainstream conversation.
So connecting that back,
Yeah.
it's about conscious engagement, right?
Yeah.
Individually, how we use these tools, but also collectively, how we shape the rules of the digital road.
Precisely. Intentionality is key.
So wrapping this up, What we've really dug into today is that the rise of social media isn't just a tech trend. It's one of the most significant cultural shifts in human history, period. We've become a species that increasingly thinks, communicates, relates, even feels through digital mediums. And for digital natives, the generation born into this, it's not an add-on, it's not a choice. It's just the world, the air they breathe.
And understanding this whole transformation, the amazing benefits, the serious costs, the underlying mechanics, it's just absolutely crucial if we want to navigate our connected future thoughtfully.
So maybe the final thought to leave you with, thinking like those social detectives we talked about, as we keep weaving these digital threads into our lives, crafting identities, building communities online, what unseen patterns are we stitching into the very fabric of human nature itself? And maybe more importantly, what responsibility do we all share in shaping what the digital cultures of tomorrow actually look like? Something to mull over, definitely.